Congressman, you expressed a lot of hesitation, a lot of questions about this bill. Americans, your voters, watching you now as a yes. Can you just walk us through how you got there and really what changed things for you to get to yes?
Sure. Well, first of all, yesterday we got a significant conversations with the executive branch about what they can do to deal with the ridiculous amendment that was thrown in at the last minute, the 11th hour in the Senate on the green new scam subsidies. We were also able to get some significant, I think, assurances of what they're doing on spending, things they can do, as we've been talking about, rescissions through the pocket rescission process that the executive branch is carrying out, plus other things that I can't quite get into at the moment that I think will have significant impact on spending. But finally, most importantly, look, through the whole process, at every turn, we've had times where we've actually pulled the trigger, voted no, I took down the bill in the Budget Committee. We've done it in the past. But sometimes you have to just take a step back and say, look, we're going to take the wins, right? So earlier in this process, they said, you're not going to get more than about $300 billion. We got $1.6 trillion. They said, you're not going to get anything on Medicaid. We got $1 trillion on Medicaid, work requirements, serious reforms, provider tax changes that they said we couldn't get. In the House, they said, you can't get provider taxes. We were even told you can't get provider taxes. We had a fight with leadership and even with the White House about provider taxes. And then we were able to work with the Senate to get that through on the Senate side. Then we were able to get, they said, oh, you're not going to be able to touch the signature agenda item of Biden on the green new scam subsidies. And we did. We got about $500 billion worth. So, but at each stage, you take the win. Here at the end, the question was what did the Senate do? I would have liked to have gotten more, let's be clear, but it's a good bill overall in terms of what it does on tax policy, spending, historic mandatory reductions, and importantly, the green new scam subsidy repeals that I think now the executive branch can make sure happen.
You mentioned assurances from the White House. Can you be more specific?
No, I'll let them do that. That's their job.
But you mean wind and solar in particular has been what you've been concerned about?
I mean, that's the lion's share of the subsidies. I would prefer to hit I would have hit them all equally. Carbon sequestration, batteries, all of it. I think all of it. None of them should be subsidized. Yes, I would treat them all equally, although nuclear is so hamstrung by regulatory stuff, I'm less bothered by their subsidies, but I would get rid of all the subsidies.
Do you think permitting changes are key to this, where they can sort of force them to go through every last permitting thing and not fast track it?
That's certainly a big part of it. There are other things that you'll see the administration doing that gave me great comfort yesterday about where the president is on those particular forms of energy. We just need to level the playing field and get the government out of the business of picking winners and losers. The president agrees with that. I got great comfort in that. I think they can fix some of the damage done by the Senate, and they can do that fully under the law, and I got comfortable with that talking to their lawyers.
Tim Burchett told us a little while ago, he said, you know what, the debt ceiling is just a fraud. We ought to do away with it entirely.
I disagree. With all due respect to Sam, he's a good man, but debt ceiling is important. We ought to hold on to it. Frankly, we ought to use it more. I wouldn't have increased the debt ceiling $5 trillion, but, you know, I'm 1/435th of 1/2 of 1/3, so that's my voting power.
Congressman, the Congressional Budget Office estimates that up to 12 million Americans will lose their health insurance over the course of a decade.
Yeah, the Congressional Budget Office also estimated that the work requirements should be 90% effective. They won't be. Like they don't get everything right. No, but the fact is they're also talking about people that we're saying there ought to be work requirements attached to. So we're saying that we need to have only the vulnerable population who truly need care being able to use Medicaid, and that we need to get more people who are able-bodied and working to be doing so. So we think we made good changes. The eligibility requirements are important. You have people who are ineligible that are on Medicaid, and they're sucking away resources from the eligible, the most vulnerable. By the way, we only touched the tip of the iceberg of what we need to do. God bless the Senate for at least adding in the provider tax, the one good thing they did. But we didn't even touch the FMAP rate, and we should have. But it's a good bill overall. Man, $1.6 trillion, and we actually touched Medicaid. They said we never would, and we got $1 trillion of savings. To be clear, all that does is put us back on the pre-Biden COVID trajectory. Go look at the chart. We're literally at the level where you would have been before Biden coming out of COVID. So it's a step back to put it back in line. We frankly need to do more reforms.
Congressman, did the administration make any Medicaid commitments in the past few days?
I want to be a little careful there, but I will say yes. We had some good conversations about what they can do to go after, use their current law to be able to go after Medicaid waste, fraud, and abuse in states and claw some of those dollars back to force some issues on that, and I think they're going to do that. Yeah.
Congressman, a lot of Freedom Caucus members are saying they were no's yesterday firmly. Now they're yeses after they got agreements and assurances from President Trump, but nobody will say what those assurances are.
Well, I've been out here telling all these guys that, I mean, we had very specific conversations about what the executive branch can do with respect to the Green New Scam subsidies. The fact that the Senate added an amendment at the tail end that gave us real concern and pause that we didn't think we could support. We believe the administration is aligned with us on terminating those Green New Scam subsidies. We believe we're going to get 90+% of all future projects terminated. And we've talked to lawyers in the administration. We believe that's true. We also got some other assurances about how we're going to deal with future spending, some of the things on rescissions and in-pocket rescissions, and future reconciliation packages. Look, would I have rebooted and done a little bit more? Yeah. But as I just said, I'm 1/435th of 1/2 of 1/3. You got to figure out how to move the deal.
Isn't one of the core tenets of the Freedom Caucus, of its founding, transparency in government? How is this transparent? No American knows what got you guys from no to
I'm
yes.
telling you what they are right here. But besides, I'm also telling you that along the line, you keep pressing for what you can get. And we got $1 trillion of Medicaid, $1.6 trillion in cost, $500 billion of Green New Scam subsidies peeled back. We got work requirements. We got food stamp change. They said we'd never touch food stamps. You can't touch it. Then we did. Then we forced it so that it wouldn't be going to illegal aliens. We got serious dollars in for on the border stuff when they said we wouldn't, that we'd have to end up putting amnesty in there to get that stuff. We didn't.
But those were all in the bill when you said you were a no.
Those were not in the bill when we said we were a no in February, and then we negotiated those in. Remember, who voted the bill down in the Budget Committee? Was it you? No, it was me.
That was you.
And so we voted it down, and what do we get for that? Green New Scam subsidy stuff. Back when they said we couldn't get Medicaid, it was us who then formulated what? We put together a working group, right? It was a framework where we came out of Budget Committee with my friend Jody Arrington, who was just over here, the Budget Committee chairman, and we forced them to the table. Guess what? We got $1.5 trillion of savings, including Medicaid. All of that adds up. And then here at the end, through last night, we were a no. I was a no. There were definitively enough no's right up through about 2 a.m. until we got pretty good understanding of where things are with what the lawyers can do in the administration to stop the continued subsidies going to these ridiculous private corporations that are undermining our grid. Any last question over here?
Yes. What do you think the odds are of another significant reconciliation bill before the midterms?
I bet there will be another reconciliation package. I don't think it'll be as big. I think there'll be some targeted stuff, but you'll have to ask the administration about that. But I think there's a good chance of that.
Carson, what about
What's that?
Do you think that this bill you had concerns about, is it now a winning issue for the midterms? Do you think Republicans are going to have a hard time solving this?
No, I think it's a winning issue. I mean, like, again, do I think it's perfect? No bill that Congress produces is perfect. But does it extend tax cuts for the people that I represent who badly wanted it? Yes. Does that include standard deductions and lower tax rates and child tax credits and things that are important for people across the income strata? Yes. Does it actually do what we said we were going to do on Medicaid reforms and making serious changes there? Yes. Does it save $1.6 trillion compared to what we were going to spend? Yes. These are all winning issues. Does it fund the border so that we can remove dangerous illegal aliens? Yes. We've got tons of winning issues in there, including funding defense, modernizing the military, and I think responsibly trying to deal with our deficits. I would have gone further, as I've been very clear. I do think there was too much front loading. I do think there's things we could have done better, but I think that the bill at the end of the day is a powerful statement for the differences and the priorities of the president and this administration and our Democratic colleagues. Thanks, guys.